Hey, my friend. I'm so glad you decided to check out my channel. If this is your first time here, be sure to subscribe and share the video with your friends and family. It helps more than you know. Let me know your city or country in the comments. I read and value each one. Let's jump in. Alina entered the Willow Grove Grill carrying a storm within her, unsettled and shaken to the core. Her hands still trembled, a residual echo of what had just transpired. Moments earlier, a reckless driver had darted out of a parking lot, nearly colliding with her car. In a panicked reflex, she swerved hard to avoid the crash, scraping her vehicle along a metal post. The result was a brutal, jagged mark stretching along the side of her car. Rattled, she had pulled over and sat in stunned silence, her pulse racing. She drew in long breaths, trying to steady herself, to keep the tears from spilling over. Part of her had wanted to turn around, go home, and forget all of it. But instead, she had continued forward. Arriving still felt like the only choice that mattered. The valet gave a brief glance at the damaged side of her car, his expression tinted with quiet pity. Without returning his gaze, Alina stepped inside, the weight of her unraveling day pressing down on her shoulders. The maitre d' offered a warm smile and asked, "Are you Alina Hayes?" Hearing her full name spoken aloud stirred something inside her. It had been a long time since anyone had said it that way. Cole always insisted on using their full names when making reservations. He claimed it lent a certain dignity. The memory tugged a faint, automatic smile from her lips. She was shown to a table by the window, where a glass of wine had already been poured. Cole must have arranged it in advance, something he used to do on significant days. She shrugged off her damp coat and combed her fingers through wind-tangled hair, trying to find her bearings again. She had chosen her outfit with care, but the day had undone her efforts. Her lipstick had smeared, her hair had lost its shape, and her hands still refused to be still. Sitting alone, she scanned the dining room. Couples in conversation, quiet laughter passing between tables. The gentle clinking of utensils and the soft chime of wine glasses brought back memories of a life she once knew. She lifted her napkin, not to dab her lips, but to mask the rising ache in her throat. Closing her eyes, she felt her mind drifting, unbidden, to the beginning of it all. Fresh out of university, she had been brimming with drive, eager to prove herself at the accounting firm where she'd just landed her first role. Cole was already a long-time client when their paths first crossed. There was something different about him, not just charisma, but a rare attentiveness. Though he had years more experience, he never spoke down to her. They connected quickly. What started as work discussions gradually deepened into something more. Soon, spreadsheets led to shared coffee, and coffee evolved into dinners. In time, they became inseparable. Cole had a grounded presence, a kind of steady warmth that drew people to him. He believed in her, cheered for her victories, and waited outside whenever she faced big meetings. With Cole, she felt completely understood. Before the year was out, he proposed. There was nothing flashy about it, just sincerity and love. She'd accepted immediately. Their wedding was simple, but meaningful. Their families meshed easily, and their friends seemed genuinely thrilled. The early days of their marriage moved with a beautiful simplicity. They split chores, exchanged whispered jokes, and dreamed together, of travel, of a larger home, of children maybe. Life with him felt like breathing in peace. Back at the restaurant table, the past bled into the present. Alina checked the time, rearranged her silverware, and took small, measured sips of wine to calm her nerves. She didn't know if Cole would appear. Since everything fell apart, they hadn't met face to face. She had tried, left voicemails, sent messages, but he hadn't answered. So when she suggested dinner, she hadn't held out hope. This time, though, he'd replied. He even made the reservation himself. His message had been short, almost stark. "I'll be there at 8. It had been enough to stir something deep inside her. Hope, perhaps, or its shadow. Whatever it was, she knew this evening might be the last thread holding them together, though she wasn't sure what she was hoping for. Was it goodbye? A reconciliation? A chance to say what had never been said? She didn't even know what she wanted, only that some truths had remained buried too long. Now, sitting here, all she could feel was the knot tightening in her chest and the ache of waiting for someone who might not walk through the door. A server approached and asked if she was ready to order. She declined with a gentle shake of her head. Her fingers drifted to her wedding ring, one she wore only when no one was around to see. Her gaze moved across the room, scanning faces, searching for him, or maybe preparing herself for the possibility that he'd already decided not to come. Maybe silence was his final answer. She lingered in that uncomfortable middle ground, caught between the echo of their past and the silence of what they'd lost. Each passing moment only magnified the tension coiled within her. It was no longer just about whether he'd arrive. It was about everything left unsaid, the remorse, the dread of facing the truth, the courage it took to sit there, open and exposed, with a heart full of pain. Yet despite all that, she knew she had to be there, because some part of her understood, whatever fragments remained of their story, or whatever ending awaited, it would all begin, or be finished, at that table. The earliest signs that something had shifted came quietly. Alina kept brushing them off as the usual growing pains of sharing a life. But with time, a quiet unease began to take root, even in moments that once brought her joy. Cole's kindness hadn't faded. He still noticed the little things, still brought her tea without being asked, still remembered how she liked her eggs. But the rhythm of his predictability had dulled a once electric current between them. The affection hadn't left, yet the spark that once made them feel unshakable had dimmed into something quieter, less urgent. Alina felt its absence like a draft from a door she couldn't find. Her mornings came without anticipation, her evenings felt heavier than tiredness, and more she avoided conversations that once came easily. To the outside world, she still played the part of a devoted wife with practiced ease, but inside, a slow unraveling had begun, barely perceptible, yet steadily growing. Hairline cracks spread through her certainty, small but irreversible. It was during this quiet disintegration that Mason Drake appeared. He was a new client from out of town, confident, magnetic, and as unpredictable as Cole was dependable. He was spearheading an expansion initiative that, through coincidence or fate, involved Cole as one of the investors. This professional link brought both men into proximity, and in turn, drew Alina closer to each in different ways. From their first meeting, Mason struck a different chord. His voice was smooth with intention, his smiles carried meaning, and the way he looked at her seemed to awaken a part of her she had tucked away. Their conversations began formally, appropriately, but the dynamic gradually shifted. Subtle compliments surfaced, followed by pointed observations and questions that went beyond work, about her ideas, her hopes, even her preferences. She told herself to stay within bounds, to keep it all professional. But his focus on her, his attention, filled a quiet void she hadn't dared name. Soon, she found herself watching the clock, eager for any meeting that might include him. She responded to his messages with a rush she pretended not to notice. And without meaning to, she stepped into a space where boundaries blurred. The turning point came on an ordinary day. A progress meeting had been scheduled, one of many, this time involving both Mason and Cole. It was meant to be procedural, a routine check-in. Yet, an unspoken strain filled the room. Cole stayed poised, his focus buried in spreadsheets and timelines. Mason, on the other hand, kept up his signature charm, sneaking glances Alina's way that felt loaded, deliberate. At one moment, he chuckled and tossed out a comment about someone being especially distracted lately. Cole didn't read between the lines. He barely looked up. But Alina felt the words hit like a sting. She forced her way through the rest of the meeting, smile tight, hands cold. Later that night, Cole made an offhand remark about Mason being unprofessional, too relaxed, too brash. Alina deflected, saying he was like that with everyone. Claiming exhaustion, she went to bed early, but not before locking herself in the bathroom and weeping quietly into a hand towel. The shame was corrosive, not only for what she had done, but for the fact that, even knowing better, she couldn't stop wanting more. The affair had begun weeks earlier. What started as a stolen kiss in a parking structure escalated quickly to clandestine coffee shops and whispered phone calls. Eventually, it led to motel rooms, to flimsy excuses, to a cascade of texts sent after midnight. Alina convinced herself it was temporary, something she could control. But Mason had no intention of being a secret for long. He messaged her even when she was home, sent pictures that made her heart lurch, never afraid of the consequences. Each time she told herself it would be the last time. Each time she meant it. Yet something always pulled her back. Mason grew more insistent. He started sending gifts, making comments about their future. One afternoon, he arrived at the office with a small box. He said it was a token, a thank you for her commitment to the project. She didn't dare open it then, tucking it quickly into her purse. In the sanctuary of a locked bathroom, she lifted the lid with shaky hands. A slender silver chain held a single blue gem. Tucked beneath it was a note. You deserve more than what you're settling for. That sentence haunted her for days. It echoed thoughts she hadn't dared give voice to. And worse, Mason was ready to act on them. He was done hiding. He wanted to pull her out of what he saw as a stagnant life and step into something real. He wanted to make their relationship public. The idea paralyzed her. No matter what she felt for him, she wasn't prepared to destroy everything she had built with Cole. Their marriage had cooled, but it still offered her a kind of safety. And so began a quiet war inside her, between the stability of her life and the pull of what she hadn't expected to find. Sleep became elusive. Even the lightest brush of Cole's hand brought a jolt of guilt. She felt exposed everywhere, in meetings, at lunch, in the silent moments at home. But even then, she couldn't let go. She had gone too far. This was no longer a passing weakness or emotional hunger. Now, it was a decision, one she was making over and over, even when she didn't want to admit it. What she couldn't know was how quickly that decision would demand its price, or how deeply the fallout would leave its mark. It was their wedding anniversary. From the moment she opened her eyes, Alina felt the weight of everything she hadn't confessed. She skipped breakfast, ignored her phone, even her brother's call, and sat in silence, staring at the necklace tucked away in a drawer. The one from Mason, the one that carried the words she couldn't forget. She had resolved what she needed to do. End it. She had to tell Mason before the dinner reservation. She couldn't celebrate a milestone with Cole while hiding this betrayal. Mason had asked to meet at the company's headquarters. There was a quarterly event that night, and key partners, including Cole, were expected. Alina had assured him Cole would head straight to the restaurant, skipping the event altogether. Mason agreed, his signature half-smile in place, the look of someone who thought he already knew the ending. When she arrived, he was waiting in the lobby, wearing the shirt she had once told him she liked. A silent dare. Without speaking, he held out another box. She objected, calling it ridiculous to accept yet another present, but he pressed it into her hands, a faint smirk playing on his lips. With visible reluctance, Alina took the box and stuffed it deep into her purse, as though hoping to be rid of it as quickly as possible. She told him they needed to speak somewhere more private. Mason suggested an empty meeting room. After a brief pause, she gave a reluctant nod. Inside, Alina tried to remain steady. She told him it had to stop, that it had gone too far, that none of it made sense anymore. Everything was unraveling. Mason said nothing at first, but when he spoke, he rejected every word. He insisted she was stuck in a false life, claimed she was miserable, and said he was the only thing that had ever felt real. She backed away, pleaded with him to let her go, but he stepped forward, pulled her into a kiss, one filled with everything she had tried so hard to ignore. At that exact moment, the door burst open. Cole stood in the frame, stunned, his eyes wide, his jaw tight, completely paralyzed by what he saw. He had come with flowers, hoping to remind Alina of what they still had. The bouquet slipped from his grasp the moment he registered the scene in front of him. Alina flinched, mortified. Mason didn't move. He only smiled, cocky and unrepentant. The silence that followed was brief, but excruciating. Cole stepped forward, pointing directly at Alina, and finally unleashed all the rage he'd bottled up. He called them disgusting, said everything made sense now, the cold distance, the flimsy lies, the constant evasion. His voice was controlled, but full of fire. Alina tried to say something, but her sobs choked her words. Mason stood with his arms folded, laughing without warmth. He mocked the confrontation, sneered that Alina had never loved Cole. Then, with chilling certainty, he stared Cole down and said, "I've been with your wife for a while now. And she's mine now." Alina screamed at him to stop, but it was too late. The words had landed. Cole stared at Mason, then looked at Alina like she was a stranger. Whatever he'd come to say died before it could leave his mouth. He turned around and left. The door slammed behind him, and only Alina's crying filled the room. Cole never once looked back. His skull throbbed, and the image of that moment replayed in his mind like a jagged reel, stabbing at his chest with every step. He reached his car, fists clenched like stone. His breathing was shallow, jaw tight. The flowers he had brought now lay on the passenger seat, a cruel mockery of what he'd intended. He started the engine and drove, not toward anywhere in particular, just away. While on the road, his phone buzzed. Alina. He let it ring once, then again. The third time, he picked up. She was crying so hard the words came out mangled, barely intelligible. She tried to explain the unexplainable. Cole cut her off. His voice was even, cold. "Don't come home. Spare us both the misery." Then he hung up. Back at the office, rumors ignited and spread fast. Some had heard the yelling. A few had seen Cole storm out. Others noticed Alina's tear-streaked face and Mason's smug posture, his expression revealing how proud he was of the chaos he'd caused. He followed Alina into the hallway, still trying to persuade her. "Come with me," he said. "Let's leave this place behind." She spun around, eyes blazing. She called him selfish, worthless, told him all he ever cared about was himself. When Mason tried to respond, she screamed over him, "Get out of my life, Mason, I'm serious, leave." His smirk vanished. For a moment, he just stood there, stunned. Then he straightened up, adjusted his jacket, and walked away with that same swagger as if nothing had changed. But something had. That night, Alina stayed with a friend. She cried until her eyes burned. She called Cole again, but he didn't pick up. She sent long, pleading messages, saying she'd made a horrible mistake, begging for a chance to explain, swearing she still loved him. The only reply was silence. The next morning, Cole got up early. He showered, dressed as though it was any other day, and drove directly to a divorce lawyer's office. Calmly, he recounted everything, handed over the required documents, and asked to begin proceedings immediately. He wanted no discussion, no explanations. He wanted closure, and he ensured it. That same morning, Mason still believed things would settle down. He assumed Cole, however hurt, would eventually come around and keep their business connections intact. But Cole had different intentions. He started making calls, one by one, to every investor involved in Mason's projects. He told them the truth, not angrily, but clearly and firmly. Said he couldn't, in good faith, continue working with someone who had demonstrated such personal and professional betrayal? Within hours, Mason's phone was lighting up nonstop. Deal after deal unraveled. Every last one. Cole's reputation held too much weight, and no one wanted to gamble their name backing Mason. The fallout was complete. At her friend's place, Alina woke up to eyes swollen from crying and a deep, throbbing ache in her chest that refused to fade. She had barely lifted her fork when her phone vibrated on the table. It was her boss. His voice was short, emotionless. "We need to talk." She tried to deflect, claimed she wasn't feeling up to it, not today, said she was sick. But he didn't pause. "I've heard everything. I didn't want to do this over the phone, but your position here is terminated." She ended the call in stunned silence. Her body sat rigid. Her mind went blank. She collapsed onto the couch and let the tears return. The pain cut deep, but not as deep as the hollow Cole had left behind. The job, the title, the office politics, none of it compared to the ache inside. She came home late, clinging to a last shred of hope. Maybe he'd left something behind, a bag, a letter, a sign. But the moment she stepped inside, she understood. Cole was gone. Completely. No clothes, no papers, no trace of him remained. Drawers sat empty. The closet looked enormous, deserted. Without thinking, she called his mother. The reply was blunt. "I don't know where he is." Days stretched into a haze. Silence hung over everything like a dense fog. Then a letter came. A thin envelope with divorce papers inside. Her fingers trembled the moment she touched it. This wasn't abstract anymore. It was happening. Still, before giving in to the finality of it, she made one last effort. She reached out to Cole, asked him to meet, for dinner, to talk. It took time, but he answered. Willow Grove. 8 p.m. Just like that, everything circled back. The same restaurant, the same corner table, the same unbearable weight in her chest. A flicker of hope she knew might already be gone. When Cole walked through the door, she forgot how to breathe. A simple shirt. Nothing remarkable. But he seemed different, more centered, yet somehow further away. He met her gaze, approached slowly, pulled out the chair across from her, and sat. No greeting, no warmth. Alina inhaled, stared down at the napkin in her lap, and forced her voice to work. "You didn't have to come, but thank you for showing up." Cole said nothing. She pushed forward, admitted her faults. Spoke of the damage she'd caused, of her choices, her pride, and how fear had paralyzed her. She told him about the endless nights, the job she'd lost, the crushing loneliness. Her words poured out, raw and unguarded, mixed with the tears she couldn't hold back. At the end, she asked for forgiveness. Cole never interrupted. He watched her, unmoving, as if he'd already come to terms with everything she had to say. When the silence finally returned, he let out a long breath and spoke. Not with anger, but with finality. "I didn't come here to start over. I came because you deserved to be heard. You lost the trust of your colleagues. You lost the man you abandoned us for. And now, you're losing me. This isn't revenge. It's just the cost of your decisions." She crumbled, pleaded with him, tried to explain, to bargain for another chance. But Cole stood, composed, resolved, and walked away without looking back. He left her there, sitting alone in that dim restaurant surrounded by memories, swallowed by shame, and silenced by a heartbreak deeper than anything she'd ever known. That was the end. 2 months passed. The divorce was final. Alina tried to start over, but she didn't even know what direction to take. Meanwhile, Mason was facing a downfall of his own. The empire he once believed untouchable was collapsing from the inside. Cole's decision to leave sent shockwaves through the business. Investors panicked, partners pulled out, deals evaporated, the money stopped flowing, operations halted, staff went unpaid, bills mounted. Mason clung to his usual bravado, insisted he had a plan. But deep down, he knew. This wasn't about Alina anymore. Not about betrayal or broken marriages. This was about failure, looming and inevitable. It didn't take long. Within weeks, the company shut its doors. Employees were let go. Lawsuits followed. The name Mason Drake, once synonymous with success, became a warning whispered in business circles. A symbol of pride unchecked. Of ambition without restraint. He lost it all. And the silence that followed him wasn't like Cole's. Cole's silence was chosen. A kind of quiet that heals. Mason's silence was empty. The kind born from denial, from watching everything fall apart and learning nothing in the wreckage. And Cole, he chose peace. And in the end, that was his greatest victory. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.